What were we talking? We were talking about how we eat Slim Jims. Is that what we were talking about?
The meat Go-Gurt.
Yeah. That's how you let me realize that's why I enjoy it the most.
Well, here recently there was this video of a man online who was talking about how you got to peel your Slim Jims, and we're like, yeah, you got to take those wrappers off. That's
I don't
right.
support that.
And then I'm like, oh, he's taking off that synthetic meat skin that they put on the outside of the Slim Jims.
Right.
It's supposed to be some kind of intestines casing,
Like on sausage. Yeah.
but you can take it and you can peel it, and once it's like peeled off of the meat, its consistency's like that of a plastic bag.
Look, I had 2 of them on the way here, so I feel like I'm the closest thing to an expert at this moment on the topic.
Yes.
I got the Randy Savage Spicy Editions. I wouldn't call them Slim Jims. They're more of robust Jameses because of their large stature. Now, that being said, I don't support the peeling of Slim Jims. I like to just bite off a big hunk of it and then split it with my back teeth and then like fold it around itself so that chewy casing is on the inside, and then I just probe it around, you know. And that's how I enjoy it.
I've never thought more that I didn't want to hear how to chew up a Slim Jim in my mouth until now. Thank you, Tiny.
You are welcome.
Well, yeah, I sit there, I bite off a piece, and I'll chew on it softly to where the inside of the Slim Jim gets softer and softer, but the casing is still wrapped around it to where eventually, like you said, Go-Gurt meat comes out of the inside of it, and then I'm left with a plastic bag to chew on until my heart is finished with its desire.
Yeah.
And then I swallow it for it to probably kill me quicker than most things that I consume.
And if you ever wanted to just completely forego, like completely skip the process of having to peel and or chew your Slim Jim casing, you can just go buy beef jerky in the dip can. I mean,
dip jerky.
Dip jerky is Slim Jim innards.
I do have a question.
Go on.
So when you're slowly masticating your portion of Slim Jim,
Yes.
does it not just get like spit laden to where now it's more like a meat gusher?
It's I would say meat gusher. If you fused a meat gusher and a meat Go-Gurt together, it's like chewing on a Go-Gurt, just packaging, but you can consume the packaging.
Also, Meat Gusher is the name of someone's sex tape.
I mean, you're not wrong.
This episode brought to you by
meatgusher.com.
Do not look that up. Do not look that up.
Look it up,
Don't
please.
do it. Hey, everybody, I'm Dane Holland.
I'm Robust James.
I am Otto Caydell Cogdell.
And I'm Tiny.
And we are Nerded Through the Grapevine, the podcast where 4 best friends gather weekly to talk about our favorite parts of past, present, and future nerd culture. And in nerd culture, gatekeeping is kind of a thing that we on this podcast don't condone. We don't like when people are like super into their nerd topic, and if somebody tries to get in there, they're like, well, if you don't know this, this, and this, you're not a real fan.
Oh, yeah, the worst.
And
Yeah.
it keeps a lot of people from getting into a lot of nerd culture because it is kind of scary, going into like a card shop and you've never played Magic before, but you really want to play, and you've got a bunch of people there, and if you sit down with somebody and they're just kind of like making fun of how you don't know the rules or getting upset with you and things, like, it's going to make people not even try and move on to something else.
I was called a lot of names.
Yeah?
Back in middle school.
Like Brian?
No. Oh, I'm Austin Shazam Pfeiffer. So
okay.
What happens is in middle school I was portly, and I was I was branching out into different genres of music, and amongst the names that I was called, like fat ass and another word that means a bundle of flaming sticks. I was also called poser a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And
that was a word. I don't know if people use that anymore.
people
Not
don't-
anymore, but
people,
yeah.
people don't use that word anymore, but they give you the same thing with their gatekeeping. By you having a budding passion for something like within nerd culture, whether it be music, whether it be comics, whether it be, you know, anything we talk about on here, it's nerd stuff, it's culture. People want to stop you from having as much fun as they do because they feel like what gives you the right. Just like, you know, Elden Ring with 3/4 of the things that happen on the game. Everybody always says, you don't have the right.
Oh, you don't have the right.
You can gatekeep that game from me. I mean, I'm cool with that. But we are more into gategaping or gate spreading. That's what today's episode is about. We're here to give you good entry points into different things to just kind of test the waters, see if that's what you like. We're inviting you into the community.
And I've got a couple of reference points for stuff, but one of the things that I want to talk about heavily is the fact that in my young age, in middle school, that's when I was starting to get out and start to branch out more into stuff, especially musically. And music was something for me that I really liked country music growing up just because I was always hanging out with my mom, and that was all my mom was listening to was country music. And I started branching out into more genres of country, of like not country, but just general music. And I started really getting into classic rock because I started talking about some classic rock stuff. Then all of a sudden my dad had something to say to me because
you weren't there. You don't know.
Because I started listening to Kiss.
Oh, Lord.
And my dad's like, what are you listening to? I was like, it's Kiss. It means Knights in Satan's service. No. But no, I'd gotten into Kiss, and I'd gotten some money, and I went to the Sound Shop, which was our local record store, and I bought my first CD with my own money, which was a Kiss compilation CD. Called Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits.
Mine wasn't any better. It was Lenny Kravitz's Greatest Hits.
I couldn't even tell you what mine was.
The first CD I remember owning was Sean Paul's, the one that had Temperature on it, because like I didn't have like a portable music player growing up, so all my music came from the radio. And I remember really liking Temperature by Sean Paul at the time. I just told my sister, I want this one, and I got it for my birthday, and I listened to it on the back of the school bus for like 3 years.
Nice.
So in my quest for finding, you know, my love for music, and especially this classic rock genre that I've never really been exposed to before, I started branching out into all sorts of different bands, and I really started to like Pink Floyd.
Oh, yeah.
And there's not a single problem with a person starting to listen to Pink Floyd, unless you're in middle school and you start wearing a black Pink Floyd shirt, then the goth kids gang up on you.
Yeah, like I feel like the music scene is like one of the few scenes that still use poser as an insult, and it is the worst in it because
it hurts.
Yeah, I branch out into a lot of different kinds of musics, and I always feel like I have to like preface of like, yeah, I listen to a lot of this, name off like artists, so I don't get called a poser. And it's like, I listen to so much music, but just because you listen to this one guy more than I do, you think I'm not a real fan.
Now there's a new thing. There's a newer thing that's happening. It's replaced poser a little bit, as opposed to poser being what they say. It's they'll issue the challenge, and it's kind of like a cis white male thing to do, which we're all right. Capable of great evils, but this is one of the worst. They'll see like this, they'll see like this small person wearing this Metallica shirt, or wearing this, or wearing like a Kill Switch Engage, and insert band name here.
So you immediately punch them in the face to show them what a mosh pit is.
You go up to the person, and instead of calling them a poser or calling them names, you issue the test. Like, oh yeah, name one song.
Name 3 songs. 3 albums.
No, name one song. No, not radio play. Name something name a deep cut. Like, you have
How do you not know this one obscure, unpopular track from this one obscure, unpopular album by this band? How do you not know that? Are you a real fan?
Well, look, here's the thing. With Hot Topic and Spencer's and our local version and stores like that, they do sell these shirts, and some people get them as a fashion thing. If you don't know who the band is, I mean, this might be gatekeeping, I don't know, but if you don't know who the band is, I don't feel like you should wear the shirt, because you're putting yourself in the situation for somebody to be an ass to you.
Yeah, but
that's right.
But that's
right.
That's not for me to say.
Yeah,
you know,
that's just my opinion.
I don't want to stop people from wearing whatever they want to wear. I don't want to.
I'm also going to say that I don't do that. I'm like, they like that band.
You're saying
That's
you're
what I
setting
assume.
yourself up for the situation, and you don't feel like people should put themselves in that situation to have to deal with it.
And you have a mental analysis of this whenever you see somebody like that. You don't physically approach them and point the finger and say, "Oh yeah, name one Korn song."
Right.
Freak on a Leash. Oh, well, you're okay.
Well, and also, like, it can turn people off. If you don't, like, that could turn someone off from even getting into the community. Because, like, I know I've had a couple of things where, like, I liked this piece of artwork. I should check out the band that's behind it. And then I ended up loving the band.
Yeah.
So, like, if you sit there and are one of those fans where it's like, oh, well, this and this and this, and, like, you don't like this, so you can't be this. Like, it turns people away from even wanting to be part of that community. And it's like, why you want more people in your community, like, more people to talk to, more points of views. Why would you want to run people off?
Because
I mean, go ahead.
The best way to approach, to me, the best way to approach someone wearing a shirt with a band that you love is, oh, I love that band. And if they respond with, yeah, me too, end of conversation, cool. But if they're like, yeah, it's just a T-shirt, I really liked it, I want to start listening to them, but, you know, instead of being like, oh, you poser, take that off, you know, throw it in the fire, it's,
give them recommendations.
Yes, you should
say,
listen to this
one. Song. It's really good.
Like,
yeah.
This is what got me into the band.
That's
like,
exactly what I was going to say.
And that's such a cool way to gategape in that situation.
And I don't support the gatekeeping by being the person that wants to call them out and say they're a poser or say, why do you have that shirt on? Don't wear it, da-da-da-da. I think you should have the right to wear it. Unless it's Iron Maiden.
Is that one that's
one
separate special?
That's one that the fan base can't be controlled. Do not do not try to control the Iron Maiden fan base in any way, shape, or form by making them accept or not accept somebody. They make their own rules. There are lawyers that are Iron Maiden's fans that will wear Iron Maiden shirts still under their suits just in case for some reason Eddie the puppet shows up. They have to prove their loyalty.
How many of them do you think actually know what an Iron Maiden is? Like
I think
all of them.
I think a
probably.
majority of them would.
Well, and
I mean,
like,
based on just the music alone, because they use a lot of classical literature as inspiration for their songs, I'm pretty sure that a lot of them, the super fans, you know, that want to do the picking and finger pointing, I bet they
I would
do.
just love if they know the birth dates and birthplaces of every band member and everyone who's ever played with them live, but not know what an actual Iron Maiden is in their life.
There's a possibility. There really is a
I'm
possibility.
sure there's at least one.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like that's that way with a lot of like 80s and 90s, like that old school like metal scene. A lot of them, there's like really niche bands that like they were big, but they weren't like Metallica big. They have like these really insular fan bases because like they almost feel like they had to protect themselves from like the new culture,
like Danzig.
Yeah,
I was thinking more like Shit Salad Sandwich. That is a real band.
I believe you.
I'm not saying look them up, but that is a real band.
It sounds like a new ZZ Top song.
They were not good.
I think the gatekeeping of these communities has been a thing for a long, long time, especially in music. But I feel like it bled into like comics and things like that of that nature a little bit more in the past like 10, 15 years because all these nerd culture things have become pop culture.
Yeah.
I think it's the more classical nerds that have been loving it since they were being picked on. You do have this sense of feeling you've got to protect it from everyone else that's not really liking it because you've been in this small group for so long. All of a sudden you see, you know, moms with Yu-Gi-Oh shirts on and it's like you don't know what it means to duel. You have no idea.
I've actually dealt like this firsthand because when the Iron Man movies were coming out, like the first wave of MCU, I was in like 3rd or 4th grade and I remember loving it, but I was never really into comics in the first place because like we had one comic shop here, but no one in my family really exposed that to me. So I always felt like I would get judged by people that were fans of the movies and fans of the comics, or even worse, people that were fans of the comics but hated the movies. It's like, oh, you're a fake fan. You just like them because they're popular now. It's like, yeah, that's how things work. Like things become popular, so more people see it, so they become more popular. Yeah. Like it was I'm sorry that I didn't devote like 10 years of my life that I haven't even existed yet to reading these comic books that came out before I was born. And it's just like that just wasn't in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that world of comic books that we were, solely isolated in, the comic book nerds were the comic book nerds. You got to read your comic books, talk about your comic books, maybe talk about some animations that were going on, You didn't have much of the way to discuss on that because it just what was happening in the books. And then in 2008, Shania Twain and Robert Downey Jr. joined together, and the door kicked in. They said, "Let's go, girls." And everybody,
To be fair, when that line drops in the song, I myself feel like I can kick a door off the hinges because, yes, let's go,
Let's
girls.
go. That's the original. Let's go. It's
Let's
Shania
go,
Twain.
girls. Iron Man kicked in the door, and now, ever since Iron Man, comic book culture is popular culture. And we
Exhibit A, Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, which I was going to say, there are a lot of levels to where this is a
yeah.
good thing, to where, yes, this is awesome that more people are now getting to enjoy the things that we've been enjoying and being picked on for enjoying for so long. But there are negative effects.
It does
like
get
Big
watered
Bang Theory.
down.
And
do they ever point out the fact that not all nerds are on the spectrum like them?
Or have very high-paying jobs that can afford, like, just to buy everything.
replicas from
Yeah.
movies and stuff. Yeah, I think there are negatives that come with the positives of the popularity of something, but without the popularity, let's say the things that are obvious of how to get into them, right? Like if you want to get into the Marvel movies, there are plenty of places to start in that. You can start at just movie number 1 of a certain series and then start doing it there.
For just $7.99 a month, you can have access to all of the movies.
All of them. But
And for free, you get access to our Discord. There's a link in the description. Click it. It's
ABP, always be plugging.
exactly. Go down there, click on that link, man. Join the community. Be part of the Backyard Bonanza. Send us memes. Tell us how you like to gape. Just remember, as always, we're on their live, uncut, uncensored, and irrevocably circumcised.
the smoothest possible transition.
Yeah, he just
I totally forgot.
He
I've been looking for like 5 minutes where to stick it in.
He speed ran the end of the episode. Like, might as well play the outro now. We're done.
Well, the easiest way for me to let people know some stuff about, say, like guitar. I got into guitar at about 20-something years ago now. And the internet was at the budding ages of in those days. You didn't have the ability to just get online and learn how to play guitar. Now you can get online and learn how to play guitar. You can get on YouTube tutorials and teach you how to do basic chords, teach you how to read basic tablature. They can teach you that for free on YouTube. But I have a little bit of an upsell. And this is not a sponsor, and they should be because I'm plugging them. Ultimate Guitar has been a website that I've used to get tablature for a long, long time. They have had a lot of people on there corresponding. It's like the Wikipedia of guitar tablature, basically. Just people that are fans and people that are players. They'll get on there and they'll edit stuff and they'll do different things. And over time, it gained notoriety with the actual publishers, because they didn't have the rights to have this music, but since it was people that were
like
writing,
open source.
it was open sourced. So what happened is Ultimate Guitar actually teamed up with a list, and this is all of the publication rights that Ultimate Guitar now has to give you the authentic, publisher verified versions of the songs signed off on by the bands.
Wow.
They have Sony, EMI, Pure Music, Alfred, Hal Leonard for you band geeks, Faber and Music Sales, as well as Harry Fox Agency. You look up these people; they own it all.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
All of this stuff that you can think of, and I have paid a subscription to Ultimate Guitar's app. There is a lifetime subscription fee that you can pay, which is the most expensive. At the time when I got it, it was like $50. Now it's not. It's more expensive now, but it is well worth it if you're wanting to become a better guitar player and learn songs.
Yeah.
They've got all of the tablature on there for you to be able to read. They've got chords on there for you to be able to read. You can do it in 2 different variations. And they've got instruments that you can pick out and remove or add for the entirety of the entire album's recording.
Jeez.
You can use the album's recording as a backing track. You can use the side scroll on there to go down through the instrument list and actually mute the instruments that you want muted. Say you're in a 3-piece band like me that has a singer. So there's 3 pieces. There's a drummer, a bassist, a guitar player, and a lead singer. You're working with a power trio of musicians and a lead singer, basically. So I'm having to take parts of different things and put them together to fill in spots that might normally not be filled if I'm just playing one set of structure. So on Ultimate Guitar, I can actually take and pick and choose what instruments are coming through from the studio mix to see what it's going to sound like without those instruments being present.
That's crazy.
Oh, that's
wow.
cool.
And I can pre-plan the way that I play stuff to fill in spaces and to keep air from being dead by getting on there and looking up what that song can sound like that.
That's so cool.
Wow.
It is worth it. And what it does is they're starred and they say official tabs. The official tabs are those actually signed off on and produced by the record companies.
So this is a really good next step. Like,
This
let's say like you mentioned YouTube, pretty much anything we talk about today.
Yeah.
If you go on YouTube, you can get into anything in a free way. As far as getting knowledge, you can get entire histories of something.
Well,
so you have a baseline to where okay, now I kind of know the baseline. So now I can get into say this comic run or something.
Well, the reason that I'm saying the subscription is worth it, though, is because if you're going to go ahead and you want to take that extra step into it, they also have video tutorials on there by pros.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
So it's not just Joe Schmo with a Git fiddle trying to teach you how to do stuff like, oh, I'm going to learn today. Who's my teacher today? Hi, Joe Satriani. Like it's insane. But it is I think $75 or something like that for a lifetime subscription. I promise you, if you're getting into guitar and you're needing somebody to teach you, the well needs to be as deep as possible because your brain does not know where it wants to go.
Now, I obviously know who Joe Satriani is, but
Yeah,
for
me too.
everyone
Me
that
too.
doesn't, who is he?
He's a guitar player.
Well, no shit,
Well,
Cheyenne.
tell them who it's for. We know who it's for, but we need it from you so they really trust their source.
Yeah.
Well, one of the latest groups
Are we
that
gatekeeping him right
no,
now?
no,
From his
no,
own
no,
No,
topic?
no. It's for the people that don't know because I
All of us
obviously
here know.
do.
Oh, yeah.
all of us here
I
know.
know.
One of the latest groups that he actually worked with was a compilation band that was with Sammy Hagar from Van Halen, and it was called Chickenfoot.
That is correct.
I remember.
Yeah.
Right, Tiny? That's the one you were
Chickenfoot,
looking
yeah,
for,
that
too.
was exactly the one I was looking for.
So
Chickenfoot.
I can't name any bands. Any
You don't
name-
need to. You've already done that.
I mean,
Yeah, we're good. We got Chickenfoot.
besides
I wanna-
Chickenfoot, just because I've just listened to Joe Satriani play guitar a whole lot without actually listening to the bands that he's been in.
Yeah.
But when he got into a band with one of my favorite lead singers of all time, I took note because
As you should.
because Sammy Hagar is one of my favorite lead singers of all time, and the man is I think 72 or 73, and he can still rip and tear the way his vocals used to back in the freaking 80s.
And
I'm so proud of him.
For anybody that's wanted to play guitar but know absolutely zero about it but would love to do it, tablature is a great way to get into that. That's not as intimidating because you don't have to learn how to read music to learn the tablature because it actually shows you where your fingers are going on the fretboard.
Yep, it gives you
to
six.
play.
It gives you 6 strings on there. It'll show them in order, and the way that they will appear on there is going to be the top of your chart that you will look at is your thickest string. The bottom of the chart is your highest string, and it will put a number on there, and that is the placement on which number fret on your fretboard. It doesn't
It's
get
awesome.
it doesn't get easier than reading tablature. It'll actually show you where those fingers are supposed to be sitting. And if you wanted to actually get into the chord structures on it and be like, well, that seems like it's supposed to be a chord, by golly, you just click one screen over and there's your entire chord structures with the chord fingerings on there for you to be able to know the exact chord that you're playing. And you can even click variations on it. Like say you don't want to play it that way, say it's that progression in the way that it's flowing is too difficult, you can pick alternate positions on there and actually reprogram it. So say that this is too difficult for you at your current level to play it this way. Like it's sometimes chord transitioning with your finger positions are hard. They'll give you alternate chords that will work the same way in the same fashion for it, but not be exactly right.
Yeah.
Like what it's, for the official, but
It'll
it'll give you alternates that'll still work.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just awesome. And I think that there are a lot of people out there that could really benefit from it, because used to be when you didn't have the internet, you had to go to Guitar Magazine. And I would find myself buying guitar magazines only to like shuffle through and read little articles about different guitar players and bands, and look at what I called guitar porn, because they'd be like $14,000-$15,000 instruments that I'm never going to be able to afford. But wow, does that not look cool? And then you get to the very back, and you would have signed off artist tablature.
It's the funny pages of the newspaper.
It's
flip through everything to get to the good stuff.
So back in the funny pages, you would find all your tablature, and now it is all accessible online. There are 1.6 million tabs
Oh, wow.
on that app.
That's going to slow down your computer a lot.
And
So much.
I
So
hope
much
none of them
RAM.
play music, because then you have to search through all of them and find the one playing music so you can get it quiet again,
Yeah.
It's actually, I mean, it is actually pretty simple, because it's just like having a Spotify, because it actually operates on that. You're not downloading the entirety of the database. You're only downloading and using what you're looking up.
Does that mean that you're streaming all natural organic music, while like Spotify's like the artificial music?
I don't know.
Yeah, Spotify's the sweet and low.
Right.
I don't know.
You've got
they pay licensing
the sour
rights
and
the same.
high. You got the sour and high of music.
I don't know. If
You're getting it like deconstructed. Like you're getting it by the note,
Well, if it's the way that I learn how to play stuff, I put it in a playlist on there, and it's called my To Learn playlist, and it's more like a now and later. I'll start learning this now, and I will finish it sometime later.
For me, that list is a later and never.
Yeah, me too.
I can't tell you how many lists I've made on like. Speaking of gatekeeping, anime.
Yeah. Okay.
Again,
Let's
I
get
feel like
into
me
this,
and
yeah.
me and Austin are about to
I'm good with
overrun
you.
this.
I'm good with you.
But
I'll follow you.
the anime community is one of the most gatekeeped communities ever, because unlike music, where it's like broken down into genres, anime is such a broad spectrum. I guess it is closer to music, because like there are kids animes. Like there are animes that are designed for children. And there's also animes that are like, this is an adult like animation. And
Scenes.
the amount of times that you're like, oh yeah, I watch anime, and you just list like 3 or 4 popular ones, is like, well, oh no, you don't like anime, you just like popular anime. It's like, no, they're popular because most of them are good, and the other ones, you just have to catch up on. But it's like, how am I expected to watch every little thing that comes out of Japan and Korea? Because they just pour out anime like Americans pouring out like
Sitcoms?
Crappy, yeah.
No, even worse than that. Like their reality television over there is like anime.
okay. Got
Like all of the trash TV that we can think about, they'll come out with it, and it's just anime.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like the amount of money that they put into anime is the amount of money we put into like reality television.
Wow.
Like it is just, it's what you do. And it's a lot of, there's ups and downs to that. But it's like, yeah, I didn't watch this 1-run 6-episode niche series that came out. I don't have like a connection to inside of Japan, And like that's what a lot of gatekeeping is I think people are trying to validate how much time they've spent on something, and not remembering, hey, at one point you were the one that was like Googling free anime to watch, or like Googling Led Zeppelin top hits, and then just trying to figure out something,
Everyone's been there at the beginning
Yeah.
before.
You got to start somewhere, and
Why not now?
I think Crunchyroll is a great place for people that are looking to get into anime can go to and just have it all on a buffet, Golden Corral style,
And-
just put in front of them.
If you want to just do a regular streaming service too, Hulu's anime selection is about the best selection that there can be, because you'll have a lot of popular stuff, and then you'll have some like vintage stuff. So if you're wanting to get into anime and you're like, well, I don't want to have to buy a whole new subscription service, Hulu's selection is very good. It's better than Netflix. Well, anything's better than Netflix. And like HBO Max has like Studio Ghibli, but it is hell in a handbasket trying to find anything on that app that you haven't already found.
Same with Amazon. Jesus,
Yes.
Amazon Prime is
Oh
the
my
worst.
God.
Amazon Prime sucks my whole crop.
Amazon Prime and HBO Max are polar opposites. HBO Max has next to no if you type in anime, it just brings up every animation thing they have on their website. And Amazon Prime is too niche. Like you have to type in exactly what you're looking for, or else you're going to get everything.
Yeah. And it's not even filtered in a way to where they'll show you new releases or things that are most popular now. Like
it's random.
You go to Amazon and you search anime, you're going to have Akira pop up like your third search. Like that's an anime feature-length film from the 80s.
And the first two are barely like 90s niche, never like 3 viewed sub things. It's like, why is this up here?
And 2 things with anime, and this goes for a lot of other things too. Getting into those popular ones. Let's say you just want to get into it, and you find a list of 10 best anime, that people are watching.
Don't do One Piece.
Well, that's I've got another point. My next point has to do with that too. But the first point, get into the popular one, because this way there's going to be more people that you can talk to about it. Because one of the cool things about getting into a new hobby or some kind of new nerd culture is talking about it, like finding people that you can nerd out with about this thing. And let's say My Hero Academia, let's say that's what you want to get into because you like superheroes.
Also known as pretty much the only anime Tiny ever watches.
But you like some superhero stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then so be able to combine that with anime, and that's a good place to start. For a lot of people who have watched every weird thing that they possibly can to do with anime and niche as possible, there's 10 other people that have watched My Hero and that can talk to you about it. And it'll be a great way to all of a sudden, now one of those 10 might suggest something that, if you like that, you should watch this. And it gets more niche and more niche and more niche. And then you can be a part of these smaller communities.
Yeah, because those popular ones are like on-ramps onto a highway. You can't get onto I-40 going 70 miles an hour and just like go from a dead stop to there.
Right.
You have to have your Dragon Ball Zs, your Full Metal Alchemist, your Narutos. Like you have to have those kind of easily digestible ones to get up to your niches.
Yeah, well, and things are popular because they're typically good. There's a reason that they're where they're at.
And I really enjoy getting people into anime and then talking to them about anime later on and then figuring out like, oh gosh, now they've developed this passion for it. That's so cool. Because they might branch out and watch things that I would not, because I'm already pre-programmed to watch what I watch.
That's the best part of getting someone into a new hobby is when they bring something back to you. It feels like when you have like a pet crow and you're like giving it gifts, and the first time that it brings one back to you, you're like, yes, you get it now.
My sweet baby brought me a pin.
One of the sweetest gifts that I received was whenever I sat down to watch an anime when it came out, because it looked pretty cool, and they had the English dubs come out for it, and I got to watching it with my wife, and it was called Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? And she really enjoyed that anime. She watched 2 seasons of it with me. She didn't watch the third just because it didn't time out that way. We actually picked up a new anime recently that we've been watching
together.
Every week we watch the simulcast release that they've been doing, because Netflix is starting to do anime more now. And Netflix has one on there called My Happy Marriage. And it is the sweetest, most dramatic anime that I've watched in a long time. It's about a girl who's in a house that is like this well-to-do, like nobility kind of household. Like she's from a noble house, and everybody that is from these noble bloodlines, they have some kind of supernatural abilities, but they're understated supernatural abilities in this show. Like the show revolves around politics and life, kind of like your medieval style like caste system, as opposed to what normal animes are going to be. And it's like the strongest fighter with the most badass powers are going to be the main focus of everything. And the main focus of this show is this girl who is seemingly powerless and has been downtrodden and beat by her family and like kept as a slave and all this other stuff. And she is marrying off into one of the most well-to-do families and one of the most powerful supernatural ability families in the world.
Well, it sounds like you're like, what is that the time travel thing that you watch?
Doctor Who?
No, the one with the medieval. Not the medieval, but the old, where she goes back in time.
Outlander.
Outrider.
Thank you.
Outlander. Yes,
Sing
Outlander.
me a song of a lass that is gone.
Right, Outlander. This seems like Outlander with some magic, and now someone that likes that kind of show is like, hey, well, there's this anime.
Outlander's got magic.
Time travel, dang. And she's a witch because she knows medicine. But anyway, you mentioned dubbed and subbed.
Yes.
The watching something dubbed is perfectly fine. There's going to be a lot of gatekeeping when it comes to if you don't watch the subtitle version, you're not watching anime. A lot of times there is some really good voice acting. Yes, you don't understand what they're saying, but if you can read it, you can understand it. But it's perfectly fine to watch one that you can understand what they're saying without having to read.
And
There's
well,
nothing wrong with it.
Not everybody wants to read TV.
And,
Right.
and I'll be the devil's advocate here. I'll understand why people can get upset with the dub sub
You
thing.
mean a night in Satan's service, like
Yes.
you mentioned earlier?
Yes,
Sure,
a night in
fine.
Satan's. Here's the problem. With the Japanese being one thing and saying one thing, a lot of times what American dubs will do is they'll try to fit in dialogue that'll best match what the mouth is doing on the anime to not
Right.
to try to make it more, I don't know,
American?
Like make it
Fluid
flow
and
better.
seamless?
yeah, to make it more seamless, make it flow better. And the translations in Japanese, coming off what they're saying, for what it translates to in English, doesn't often line up with what they do for what the English dub is saying. So it could be almost completely different personalities that you're having portrayed in this than what you would have in your Japanese versions of it.
Well,
But that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it
Right.
works out for the better. There's some animes that actually do American dubs that are completely subversive from what the actual anime was in Japanese. Like you were talking previously about this one that they had done, that they had like a supernatural investigation, some kind of supernatural investigation club, and everything was just.
are you talking about ghost stories?
Yes.
I wasn't talking about this. You pointed at me.
The ghost story. Well, I don't know if I was talking to you about this, but it is a historically. So the story behind it is the anime got sent over here, and the script never did. So they were, and it was like kind of a throwaway. Like it was just bought up with a bunch of other anime to be like the rights to be streamed here. So they just kind of let the voice cast do whatever, and it's so comically bad that like every anime fan watches it at some point. And I feel like because this was released in like the 90s, early 2000s when anime was like just getting over here to the scene. And I feel like that's what a lot of people don't like subbed is back then it was kind of rough because there wasn't a whole lot of experience. Animation wasn't big over here, so we didn't have like the star-studded casts of voice actors that we do now. So a lot of people, they were just kind of getting into it, and they were kind of guessing on the translations. They were relying on Japan sending over the correct ones or someone over here being able to translate them. But modernly, dubs have gotten considerably better. Like most modern dubs, I'm okay with. There still are a couple that I prefer watching subbed, but I think y'all may have already touched on this, but like it's just don't gatekeep just because it's easier to watch. Like I have trouble watching, especially like if you're watching a fighting anime, like if you're trying to watch Dragon Ball Z and see them flying around and read subtitles at the same time, you're missing out.
Yeah, visually, like you can't catch everything if you're trying to catch up with all the words at the bottom.
Unless you're properly trained.
Yeah, you got to be properly trained.
Because when I say I can't read, that means on paper.
Yes.
Right.
The other thing with anime that I was going to talk about, my second point, was there are now, it's starting to get a little bit more popular, abridged versions of some very long anime. Dragon Ball Z is one.
Kai.
So there's Dragon Ball Z Kai is what it's called, which you can find. Do you know where to watch that?
You can watch Dragon Ball Z Kai on Hulu.
Oh, you can. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but don't watch Dragon Ball Z abridged because
That's different.
That's on the YouTubes.
Yeah,
If you-
unless you're 18 plus, do not or 17 plus, don't. It's not for you. But if you're over
really
that,
funny.
it's at least the old stuff is
the old
very
stuff's
fun.
really good.
It's so fun.
Is abridged the right word?
It is an abridged version of it, but they took Dragon Ball Z abridged and they literally condensed it all down and said what they wanted to say.
Yeah,
they made their own commentary.
If you're looking on YouTube, abridged has become the like catch-all term for redubbed to be fun, redubbed and recut to be funny.
Because of them.
Because usually on, I think it started in books where they would make abridged versions of the books where it cut out a lot of the. It would turn like
Filler.
a 1,000-page book into like a 700-page book.
Yeah.
Because books were the first like movies. There's stuff that's in there that didn't need to be in there all the time.
like
Right.
Full Metal Alchemist and
Oh,
Full Metal
whoa.
Alchemist Brotherhood.
Ooh, don't that. Ooh, that is a sore subject for me because I originally watched Full Metal Alchemist, the one that came out in 2003, which was completed before the manga series was completed. And I hated it because halfway through is when they caught up to the manga, and the manga artist was just like, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm doing yet. Just do whatever.
Just make a show.
And it was like solid first half. Second half was just like, what are you doing? Why are you bringing this into this? Who are these characters? And then you watched Brotherhood. That's a 1-to-1 recreation of the manga. And it is so good. It is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is my favorite anime, and I started reading the manga, and I'm like, I don't need to read the manga because I already have it. It's in the anime.
See, in about 40 years, once the ghostwriters and everybody else have taken care of all of the nits and like bits and pieces that they need to take care of for the books, we can get Game of Thrones Brotherhood to where
that's not a subject we need to get into today. That's a topic for another day.
R.I.P. George Martin.
But
yeah,
you brought up books,
Martin.
and recently I've gotten back into reading. Because for a while I just did the Audible thing because of work constraints, and I've bought myself an e-reader, and I've just been having a really good time with it. And my favorite genre, I mean, Stephen King is my favorite writer.
Is he though?
Love you, boy.
Is he though?
Well, Joe,
because we've talked about Joe.
Love you, boy.
Okay, you can have two favorites. That's fine.
Yes. But my favorite genre is fantasy.
Right.
And fantasy can be a weird, scary pool to get into, because some of the books are like Game of Thrones style, where it's just very convoluted and there's all these moving pieces, but there's other places where there's not. And the problem with fantasy sometimes is just the wording, because not every character needs this crazy name like Viriyama Cub Maisie Wakazari.
And the guy,
that's a very hard name.
That was so
and
smooth.
I literally practiced on the way here.
That's so good. Yeah.
with Slim Jims in your mouth.
Yes, because that is a good example of just a name that's very difficult to get through. And then,
do you know how hard it is to practice names that are complicated with the ghost of Randy Savage in your backseat?
Exactly. Every time you eat a Randy Savage Slim Jim, he force projects into your immediate location and gives you like a +1 to everything.
Yeah, I mean, I even had a hot slug hit my lower intestines.
Oh,
but
Lord.
that's beside the point.
I don't know.
Later on, you'll have him visiting you while you're on the toilet, and you'll be like,
"Oh yeah, mother crap always rises."
Cream of the crap.
Cream of the crap always rises.
Yep. But there's also places you can venture into where they're not as complicated. I've gotten into David Gemmell. He's since moved on, but his works are here. That's a great thing about published works.
Oh, he died.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he might have like gone into another venture. Like
no, he's no longer.
Oh
with
yeah,
us.
he did. Death.
Oh
yeah, he moved on to the next great adventure.
Thought he might have stopped being an author and started doing EDM.
But his works are more simplistic. They have I wouldn't say normal names, but more easily pronounced names. Like
honestly, that's what scares me off of, because I've wanted to get into fantasy books, and like I have a couple that are like the big like 400 or 500 pagers, but it's like whenever my two biggest things are over explanation of either magic systems or scenery.
Yes,
and it's like I would rather you give me like episode 4 through 6 Star Wars, where it's kind of hand wavy with the Force, and like it can kind of do whatever, but like there are some rules. Whereas you get into like 1 through 3 and then 7 through 9, it's like you over explained it. Like I don't need the midichlorians, I don't need the like doctor explanation. I would rather have just the old man being, I don't know, man, you do this and then it does this and then you go.
Boy, do I have a book for you. The great thing about him, he has the Draenei saga, and it's a 14-book saga, but you don't have to read them all. There's some one-off stories, like the story of Durus, that's book 1, and it's probably 300-400 pages. It's a book literally about a siege. It's not anything crazy. There's a little bit of magic here and there that doesn't go super in depth to it. It's old retired hero comes back for one last hurrah. And so you got that big hero thing. There's a little bit of magic, so it's kind of condensed and simplified fantasy.
It's a D&D one-shot.
Yeah, essentially. And then you can move on to some of the trilogies in there, because the next 3 are in a trilogy. I mean, you don't have to read them in any kind of order, though there is a chronology to them that you can look up and follow if you would like. But it's a good place to start because it gives you a whole fleshed-out universe to look at. You have trilogies if you want them, or just little 400-pager one-offs. So it's great. Highly recommend.
Speaking of book series that is the opposite of that, the Warhammer 40K Horus Heresy. So the first 5 books are in order, and then there are 57 other books that take place somewhere in the timeline, and that is just one chunk of Warhammer 40K. Because there was a time where I was like, I want to get into Warhammer, like I have some friends that are, and I was like, I like when I can't play something, I want to get into the lore of it, and I don't have bukus of money, so I can't buy $300 pieces of plastic.
Right.
So I started listening to a podcast called Lorehammer, which,
Oh, cool.
if you want to get into it, it's pretty good. They do a pretty good simplified job. But even they said there's a lot of complicated stuff. It takes a lot to get into this. You don't need to get into the lore completely because they have like 18 different writers that write out and put out books for this. So they're all tonally different. And then like the timeline for it is crazy. If you want to get A to B, the first episode of Lorehammer, which just take place 2 eras before the current in-game timeline, was a 3-hour podcast, and they cut it down. Because where Warhammer is so old and they have so many people working on it, like D&D has a very few people working on like the lore side of things. Same with like Lord of the Rings. There's only a couple of people. Warhammer is the opposite. They have whole communities. Community things will be made lore to them. Outcomes of tabletop games will become lore to the canon book series, and it is so complicated to get into. It is the One Piece of books.
Oh yeah,
it's like,
it is ridiculous. I have ventured down the rabbit hole myself. I watched a 4-hour video about the squigs.
Yep.
Which is just this little creature, but they do just whatever. Like one squig is literally just a ponytail for this other dude. That's all he does.
and that's the lore on everything. Like even a minor race that has never had an official release or artwork of, there's like a 4-page lore book on it. And it's like, okay, what I need to know about the space monkeys that fly in bamboo huts. That is a real 100% from lore
piqued
thing.
my interest.
Right. And it's like, I don't need a whole book series on all these. Some of this is filler.
Yeah.
Like some of this can be cut out.
Well, this is where that's an established world, a very large, complicated, convoluted established world that if I were to want to get in it, because I've had those moments that, you know, those fleeting moments to where it's like,
I could
40K,
do this.
that seems like something I would like. But then you look up, hey, where to start? And you've got 700 people telling you 700 different ways to start.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's so scary. But then if you find some kind of like podcast that's doing this overarching, like, hey, this is kind of the gist of the story at this setting.
And they even broke down like the individual armies of like, hey, here's this people's deal.
Cool.
Here's if you want to play them.
Yeah, these are the types of media that you should probably seek out to make this a whole lot simpler to be able to digest.
And Henry Cavill is on a podcast to where he is giving as much in-depth 40K description as he can.
What?
He is. He's getting everything geared up. It's called the I Wish I Wasn't Lying podcast.
Geralt.
I can have him in my ears.
Geralt the Witcher plays Warhammer 40K and Superman.
Geralt the ex-Geralt the Witcher.
Notice
the one true Witcher.
The one true Witcher.
Notice the name of the podcast.
The only
was
Witcher.
I Wish I Wasn't Lying podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, you! I hate you so much.
I was wondering why it was called that, and I'm like, I'm
But
pretty
honestly,
sure.
I think he would be a great ambassador
Yeah, I
because
think he puts out Warhammer content.
He does. He also he's been on several different places before talking about Warhammer, and he actually almost missed his audition to be Superman because he was playing Warhammer.
I almost opened up Spotify and went to follow this podcast.
Well, I think he does put out
Thanks.
stuff on YouTube sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. But I hate you so much.
I think there was I think like it's the Graham Norton show, Norton
It's
or whatever.
The Graham Norton show, the British talk show. He actually explained Warhammer to like normal people.
And then somebody up there on the celebrity panel was like, "Oh yeah, I'm actually running this group right now." He's like, "Oh!" And
It was that nerd light up when someone like connects with you. You're like, my people.
So this, like the book series that you mentioned, the very large one, the opposite for me that Marcus got me into is the Malazan book series.
that I've looked at that.
Yeah.
See, the good thing about the Draenei saga, it's large, but it's not large. It has small chunks. Malazan is one big old slab.
I was going to say, Malazan is not one you start with.
No.
You start with something like what you've mentioned, because let's say you read that first book. You like the setting. You like the way the magic system is more. What you were mentioning is a soft magic system where it's not this hard scientific. Like here's exactly how this works.
Soft fantasy versus hard fantasy.
Yes, you want like if you don't want the super overcomplicated stuff, just get soft magic system books. Which I think Brandon Stevenson does. He do a harder magic system?
He does.
Is it pretty?
I'm thinking Erickson.
Erickson was the
Mistborn and Malazan.
Yeah, then Brandon Stevenson
I've not read him, so I don't know.
Not Brandon Stevenson. I know
that is an ex-roommate of yours.
Yeah, that was a friend of ours.
And I'm looking at you like he doesn't write.
Him. No,
he's not a writer.
Brandon Sanderson.
Sanderson. It was on the bag the whole time.
He does the Mistborn, and it is not a soft magic system.
No, his stuff is
a hard magic,
super hard magic system. But
Samsonite. He was on the bag the whole time.
He writes a lot of fantasy. But his stuff is also popular because it's easier to digest. I think, as far as the way it's worded and the stuff like that. But the magic systems are the confusing part.
Get convoluted, but he does a good job of kind of like spreading it out kind of thin, so it's not just like a lore dump. Here's how it works. You just kind of pick it up as you go.
That's the kind of if you're gonna have a lot of rules to your magic, put it out over like
roll it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, the wizard wanted to cast this, but oh no, he couldn't do it because of this reason, and give it a lore reason rather than just, oh yes, he can do this, but if this happens, he can't do this, but if this happens, he can undo that. It's like I don't need it in a chunk. Yeah. Give me like baby bird it, like spit it out over a little bit.
Don't D&D me in a book.
Yeah, right. It'll become static in your brain while you're reading it.
I'm one of those people that only reads the lore D&D book for character building and nothing else. It's like I love soft D&D. If like I don't track when you eat, I don't track how you sleep. This is like if you just say you long rest, sure, you long rest. Here's time passage. I hate the ones where it's like, well, you got to keep track of your gold and your arrows, and like actually you're over encumbered, so you can't pick up this thing. It's like this game is make pretend. Let me play make pretend.
Exactly. Well, I will say you have to keep track of your gold.
Well, yeah,
but all the other stuff that make it gritty, f that, man, f that, and it's a.
I've had DMs that wanted me to keep track of the weight of my gold.
I would not play with that.
Yeah,
I did
too
not.
Much.
They're like, well, yeah, you're over encumbered. Like one time I was like, they're making me keep track of my arrows. So I was like, okay, I buy like 20 quivers of arrows. So I have 400 arrows or something, some stupid high number like that. They're like, well, how are you going to hold on to all that? I'm like, on my piece of paper. I'm holding on to it on my
piece. Here.
We are playing advanced math. We're playing math with extra steps right now.
We're playing 10 like with magic with math rocks. Come on, man.
I wanted 10 like magic, not 10 like algebra.
Right. It's like, come on, dude. It's play, make, pretend.
The new Baldur's Gate, by the way, awesome Gategaping way to get into D&D if you've never played before and you don't know of people to really get into play with.
I'm so jealous because I don't have a PC. It looks so much fun.
I sailed the open seas to find a copy of this game for me to enjoy because spending a lot of money on a brand new game that I don't know if it's going to be any good or me like it.
Right.
And you don't even know if it's finished.
Don't even know if it's finished yet now because that is a very, very
sadly that is a very
problem in the video game world.
Yes.
Be careful out there on them open seas. You never know who you'll find.
It's scary. No, get back into GNC. But
probiotics.
Baldur's Gate. If you love video games, you've always wanted to get into D&D. Baldur's Gate 3, the newest one to come out, and the older ones are fine. They're a little rough, but they're also
products
it's like
of their
playing,
time.
Yeah, it's like playing D&D, but in a video game. But Baldur's Gate 3 is D&D on the screen.
Oh yes,
and it's awesome.
Glorious.
So if you've been hearing about it and wanting to play D&D but kind of not sure where to start, grab Baldur's Gate 3. It's such a cool game. You talked about getting into guitar
on Patreon.
Yeah,
give us
Patreon
some money.
is a great way for us to talk about these video games when they come out. Is on Patreon, where we can post things that people have never seen of maybe us playing this video game on Grape Flavored Gaming. Seven got to watch our playthroughs of Lawnmower Simulator and what was the other one? The fighting one that we did.
Soul Calibur?
Soul Calibur. Yeah, we played Soul Calibur and Lawnmower Simulator, and he got to watch it a few days before anybody else did because he's on our Patreon, which the link is in the description. You can wear a T-shirt with our stuff on it while you're watching us play these games with the other link that's in there for like Redbubble or whatever. But the other thing I was wanting to talk about, because you talked about getting into guitar, about good ways to do that with tablature and the what was it, Guitar something?
It was Ultimate Guitar.
Ultimate
app.
Guitar, yeah. And then Tiny with the fantasy series, which I'm interested already in
Yeah.
that fantasy series.
So
to do.
good.
And then we had anime of good ways to get into that too.
Oh, yeah.
But mine is like a very general thing of just hobbies. If you're someone like me, and I know Tiny, you're the same way.
Yep.
As soon as you get just this little taste of what a hobby that you could get into is like, please do not do what I normally do, which is to go spend a lot of money on the thing that you're only going to do for about 2 months and then get into something else immediately after.
It's
yeah.
also expensive.
It's also expensive.
The only reason I don't do that as well is because I don't have the extra money. But there have
I
been
don't
times
either, but I do
where
it
I'm
anyway.
like, oh, Warhammer, let me go look at Games Workshop and put $1,500 worth of plastic figures and paint, which isn't very large in Warhammer terms,
No, it's
into
not.
my cart. And I'm like, I can't do this. My wife would be so upset. And no.
Yeah, it's actually wild that a cheap way to get into Warhammer is to buy a 3D printer and to bring your own thing.
Used sets on eBay, if you don't mind doing some rescuing. Sometimes you can get ones that people kind of give up on halfway through for like pennies on the dollar, but you have to put in a lot of work to fix those.
Yeah, there are like Tiny, you got me into a hobby that never took off, but it could always come back. That's the thing with hobbies; they can always come back around. With the Hot Wheels and Gaslands, which when you talked about it on the show, I was like, oh, I've got to get into this. It's a very cheap thing to get into and abandon because you can find Hot Wheels in, I don't know, old couches that you have in storage.
Yeah, like I've got $30 invested in this.
Yes,
I think-
which is so cheap whenever you're getting into a hobby.
Sadly, that's the downfall of some cheaper hobbies is whenever you put $300 into something, you want to kind of stick with it and get your investment back. But if you're like, oh, I only have like $20 in here, it's like, I can miss a week. Which sadly, that's why there's not a lot of cheap hobbies around because it's easy to pick up and put down. And sometimes if a lot of people put it down, it's like you don't have anyone to play with.
Right. And for most hobbies that can continue and grow, there are like entry level ways of getting into it, like a really cheap starting point. And then you can see, oh, if I really like this, there are much better ways to get into it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But when you have a brain like mine, it's like, no, if I start with the cheapest stuff, I'm not going to like it as much because it's not going to be good quality. That's not how you need to get into new hobbies. Go on Reddit is a great source for many things. It's also an awful source for probably more. But most things have what's called a subreddit. And if you type in a hobby that you're wanting to get into and then type Reddit after it, most of the time you can find these subreddits, which are basically daily updated threads of different posts that people make involving these different hobbies. And they have things called like sidebars and mega threads that are like kind of concrete things that are involved with this community that people ask questions about all the time. And most of the time it's, how do I start this? Like, what's a cheap way to get into this?
Right.
And most of the hobbies that you can think of that have a subreddit will have this own little separate section to where they've already addressed all these questions, and you can have it all right there for you with tons of YouTube links and tons of old posts with people telling you how to get into stuff. And
all you got to do, go to your search bar, type in what you're searching for, and then the word Reddit next to it.
Yeah, that's it. That's honestly how I do most of my questions that I need answered is I type Reddit at the end of it. But I know how to navigate Reddit a little bit more to try to find reasonable sources.
It can be a wasteland of
Wasteland.
information.
You have to
and
be
misinformation.
Be prepared to suit up to go into Reddit.
Yeah.
But
It is social media, even though it doesn't look like traditional social media. It is social media.
whenever
Wear
you're
your socks.
whenever you're talking about that quote about like you want to buy like the best things, I have that too. Where it's like if I'm going to get into the hobby, I'd rather have the best stuff and buy it once. Adam Savage, the lord and patron saint of like old school nerddom and like cosplay, he said, buy the cheapest thing first, and when it wears out, buy the best. Because obviously, if you buy something cheap and it wears out quickly, it's like, okay, I need to buy more, and I've used it enough to get comfortable with it, know what I like and don't like, and I didn't spend a lot of money on it. And if it doesn't wear out for like 2 or 3 years, you don't use that tool enough to get the nice one.
Right.
And it's like, then also you've used that tool enough to know where you need and like. So it's like, yeah, I don't need the best one, but I want one step up from this.
Right.
And it's like, that's the best thing you can do to nerd them. And that's what a lot of gategaping can lead to is like, hey, I've been there. Here's what you need. And it's like, that's the way that you keep a community growing, because some of these communities that like gatekeep really bad, they get so toxic to where it's like new people don't want to be in them. And then eventually they all die out. It's like you want to keep new people coming in and giving your community life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The more people are into it, the better product can come from it too. Right. Because when you've got these open sourcing situations to where all of a sudden someone finds a new way to make something in the hobby that you're in, all of a sudden it changes everything.
I mean, Dungeons and Dragons, there's a website, I think Dimension 20, or not Dimension 20, D20, where it's all just homebrew stuff for D&D, and it's like, it's because people have been let into the community, and like,
is it Roll20?
Roll20, that's what I was trying to think.
There's a few of them like that.
Yeah.
But you can also find playgroups and stuff with some,
some of them,
things like that too.
Well, and also we need to not be afraid to ask questions. Like,
yes,
seek out the houses of nerddom in your community, because not only are you supporting local business, you're drawing on their knowledge from a person with a face.
Yes,
not just a screen. Just like, the local RC shop, I'll go in there and I'll talk to the guys like, hey, what's a good one to get? I'm wanting to get into this. And, I don't have to start off with a 10th scale. I can get a 16th scale, which is smaller, but it lets me find out whether or not I know of a good place to take my vehicle to, or even have the space, or even know if I like it, because the smaller scales are less expensive.
Yep.
I could get like a 16th scale crawler for $150 instead of dropping $500 and $600 on a 10th scale, and you still get all the customization options on the smaller guys as opposed to the larger guys, and it's cheaper.
And if you would like to pick the nerds' brains on Nerd at the Grapevine podcast about, where do we think is a good spot to start for this stuff? Like, where will we go to? What will we do? Give us a specific on what you're looking for. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
Not Twitter. We don't do it. We might as well cut Twitter off.
We can
I've
cut
never
Twitter
used
out.
Twitter.
I'm glad
we have it, but
it's
that place
danger.
is an absolute cesspool.
It's the best, worst place ever. If you're wanting something good and you've got some people talking good with you, you've got a great place. If you end up with some bad, it's all bad.
It's the method dumpster in the alley.
We're transferring from Twitter to Parlor.
Oh, Jesus!
Oh no! We're done.
That was a joke.
Pack it up.
But regardless,
if you couldn't tell, joke.
Regardless of the social media, you can find us by looking up at Nerd Grapevine.
Yeah, we're places.
Yeah, we're places.
And whenever you do go somewhere like our social media to ask us questions, which really Patreon, or not Patreon, but Discord is like the way now, I think. Like Discord is such a good way to isolate yourself in an area that you want to hear from, and they want to hear from you. So seriously, like our Discord is pretty active with a lot of people, and it's so much fun. But whenever you go to these places or come to us and you ask questions, if the person you're asking questions to is going to gatekeep and not want to answer your things or anything negative towards you whenever you're getting into this, if they're not excited to help you, immediately turn away and go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Because those are the types of people that they can give you one negative experience and you're forever turned off on it. And that's not how it works.
I've gotten the inspiration from this topic. I'm going to make a channel called like Gategaping, Gate Spreading or something, where we can specifically have an area to offer recommendations. You have a question for a specific individual, tag them in there, say, hey, I know you're into this, what's a XYZ, it's...
Oh, yeah.
Doing it.
That'll be super useful.
And if you'd like to purchase some nerd stuff that doesn't belong to Nerd It Through the Grapevine podcast, and you don't want to go to your Hot Topic and Spencer and filter through all of whatever miscellaneous BS of the week they've got going on, get on superherostuff.com. Superherostuff.com has officially licensed merchandise from several different brands, as well as a new line of hats for all of your favorite superheroes.
Are we sponsored and I didn't know about
from
it?
the New Era brand.
What is going on? Are we sponsored? That's like a sponsored ad. That was an ad read. Are we sponsored?
Where'd you hide the copy at?
That's just off the cuff there. But honestly, I mean, I go to superhero stuff and I browse all the time just because I don't spend money, but I want to.
Right. Well,
and I get on there and I'll look up stuff. But recently they've gotten a licensing agreement with New Era. and you've got your $59.50 flat bills or your $39.50 standard hats that they've got with your favorite superheroes logos and several different variations on there.
And that's
recently.
Also, you have to say hashtag not a sponsor,
Yeah.
so that
That's
way
fine.
they know
They don't
that
get a
it's not a
free-
sponsor.
yeah, they don't get a
And,
free ad.
Yeah.
I'm going to say
You
right
go
now,
further
don't
down.
go there, so that way it's even to where
Yeah.
we're not promoting them
Yeah.
without them paying us, but at the same time we are.
Hey, if you want to
balance
go to
has been achieved.
superherostuff.com and buy stuff and then tell them you heard about it on Nerd It Through the Grapevine, that could be a sponsor.
Yeah, if enough people do it, maybe we could do that.
So all 46 of you that are listening to this, make sure you get on superherostuff.com. You purchase you a pair of socks with your favorite superhero on there. But a lot of people are into these mystery box things still
Right.
too. So you can buy mystery boxes on there that are actually specified mystery boxes called hero boxes. So you can get your favorite superhero stuff just sent to you monthly, different varieties of
Oh,
it.
that's cool.
That is
So,
cool.
so say you're a Deadpool guy, you can get the premium Deadpool box. Spider-Man guy, premium Spidey box. Batman.
I was about to say, what about Batman? The
Batman's-
best superhero.
there.
Batman has got one. You open it up, and it's just dead parents.
Hey,
It's giving you just a note that says check on your
careful
parents.
on that. Some of us have those.
We'll have too many Batman.
And we've
running
also
around
never
if do
seen
that too
you
much.
and Batman in the same room. I don't think it's a
true.
coincidence.
Oh, no.
Ghost Dad beats Skin Dad
Are
every
you the
time.
Tennessee Batman?
I'm not wearing hockey
No,
pants.
I'm the Tennessee Fat Man. There's a difference.
I just want to see the bat signal coming out of your HHR.
In the-
We put like a fan on the front of it to look like the turbine from the.
Yes.
So in the end, just find us and ask us any question about any hobby we ever talk about or any nerd culture thing, because we are
We love talking about
excited.
it.
We're so excited to get to talk to new people, to bring them into whatever it is that we love. Because one day you will be our little crow, and you'll come
Right.
back with a little grape seed, and we'll get to grow that, and we'll get to find more grapes.
Well, and sometimes you don't even know who your friends are that are nerds. Like your friends have hobbies outside of what they tell you. There have been some friends that I'm like, hey, I started thinking about getting into this, and they're like, oh yeah, here, X, Y, and Z. Here's how you can get into it, because I have a friend now that gets into it.
Awesome. Come out to us. It's a safe space. Come out to us in the nerd community. We're here for you.
We will bend over and spread that gate for you.
Yes.
Let your nerd flag fly.
The gate will be gaping enough for everyone to fit in.
Absolutely.
And when I have reached into this gaping gape full of grapes, and I pick one and I hand it over to you, Caydell, what do you do with it? When I and life give you grapes, what do you do with these grapes?
I will take the grapes, sit them down, put it on a nice pair of headphones, and let them listen to a 4-hour Lorehammer dump podcast, and then I'll put them up my ass.
Excellent.
The headphones are the grapes. or both.
Both, you know.
Okay. We did talk about a gaping situation. So
Truth.
Hey, got to bring it full circle.
Notice the name of the podcast was I Wish I Wasn't Lying podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate you so much.